So an Irishman, a cowboy, and an ISIS member are discussing where they want to go out to get food. The Irishman says, I want to go to the pub. The cowboy says that he wants to go to the saloon. And the ISIS member says, I want to go to the Allahu Akbar! So here we are, 10,000 subs, 2 million views, and a bunch of mildly offensive videos later. I hope you guys have enjoyed the ride thus far, and I've got plenty more for you. But to celebrate, I'll be talking about my top 10 favorite games. This is clearly very personal, so I mean, if you want to tell me what my favorite game should be, then go ahead, I guess. I mean, it's not like that changes anything, but hey man, that's what the internet exists for. Thanks for sticking with me this far, guys, and I hope to see you in videos to come. So here are my top 10 favorite games. Few games reach the landmark status that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time have. If you ask most knowledgeable people, they will say it is just one of the best games in history. And that is exactly why it is one of my favorite. Psych boy! Number 10 is Wind Waker. So in The Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker is kind of regarded as the odd one out, but mainly due to the visual representation of it. But for me, I've always found that to be kind of charming. There is something incredibly special about stepping onto your boat for the first time and traveling out into the world. All you can really do is sit there and think, shit man, that's a lot of water. The overwhelming size and scope of this game is something to be marveled at, especially considering it was on the GameCube. You telling me this high-tech lunchbox can create all this and maintains it this well? In terms of adventure, I love Wind Waker the most because it feels, well, most adventurous to me. Besides the glaring issue of the first mission being a stealth mission, once you get past some of the obnoxious things like long travel times between islands, this game is extraordinary. And hey, there's always the faster sail in the Wii U remake. Who needs that lunchbox anyways? A lot of the games that are on this list are games from my childhood. Say it's nostalgia blindness, but a lot of these games are stuck in my head as my favorite because I spent so much time as a kid playing them. And they're probably not as great as what I remember, but I can still enjoy them nonetheless. One game that is very much like this is Animal Crossing. The original Animal Crossing for the GameCube was a game that I played tirelessly, trying to catch all of the fish, bugs, and pay that thieving fuck is goddamn. I always tried to get the bigger house and buy the best items, more than likely why I don't use my money well today, but still, it was relaxing more than anything. There was no challenge really, or an enemy. You just got to experience life inside of another world. It's a fond memory of me just because of how much time I spent playing it. I mean, might have just exposure therapied myself into liking it, but hey, here's something a little less relaxing than Animal Crossing. Metal Gear normally has a place on any top 10 list. It is a series that has had so much variety, good and bad, to it. With an incredibly deep and interesting story that theoretical physicists are still trying to figure out today, well-structured stealth gameplay, and Captain Hideo motherfucking Kojima at the helm. Well, at least it was. This game franchise really has a lot going for it. So of course, being the bitch that I am, none of the main series games are on here. Instead, I'm talking about Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Revengeance is an offshoot from the main series that focuses on Raiden. Yeah, the naked guy from the second game. In Revengeance, story takes a backseat to the gameplay that focuses on some of the most ridiculous killing and nanomachine son you could imagine. It's a pretty brutal game, but it can get ridiculous, and that's why I love it. The gameplay is fluid, and there's just this over-the-top element that you really only get when Hideo Kojima says, hey, let's fuck shit up, man. I mean, for Christ's sake, they invented a word for the title. And it's driving Microsoft a word insane. So I've never considered myself a very competitive gamer, unless it's Viva Pinata, in which case I will fucking murder. But that's beside the point. However, it's very hard for me to enjoy fighting games because, well, they're built off competition. Despite this, I've still grown to love Super Smash Bros. Melee more and more throughout the years. Being what the Smash community calls a stupid bitch, or filthy casual in layman terms, doesn't really make it any better, but still, I can look at Melee and recognize it for the ridiculous party game that it is. By no means is it balanced or perfected. However, for its time, Melee outclassed any other fighting game, especially since it followed up Smash 64, something that shook up what a crossover really was, and which just so happened to be my very first game I ever played. So as a sequel, Melee holds a lot of nostalgia for me, plus Melee introduced Ganon and his godly side special.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows?
Kirby is a pretty beloved franchise amongst kids that grew up with Nintendo consoles in their home, so I have plenty of fan favorites to choose for this spot. There's Kirby's Return to Dreamland, Kirby Air Ride, except I think I'm the only person who ever laid eyes on that game, and then there's always Kirby and the Crystal. Fuck no! Well, I have to go with an underdog in the series, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. I mean, it's Kirby, so it's not all that different from the rest of the games. Yeah, suck up enemies, yeah, take their abilities.
You must construct additional pylons.
And then you profit. The inclusion of being able to call on other Kirbys and fighting Meta Knight made it really cool as well. For some reason, I just enjoyed this Kirby game more than any other game after that, seeing as it was my first Kirby game. Maybe because it had the UFO Kirby in it. Also, it helps that people have heard of this game a little bit more than Kirby Air Ride. I mean, Cooking Mama sold better than that. FPS games as a genre have seriously declined in the previous years. They are to gaming what mobile gaming used to be to, well, gaming. They're watered down, unoriginal, rushed out, for some reason plagued with microtransactions, and are on a really steep decline. I mean, who needs gameplay like this whenever you can just be opening randomized packs of stuff? However, at one point, FPS games did have a great age of creativity, and one of the last games to get a grace of this creativity was Halo Reach. Admittedly, Halo Reach was on the beginning portion of Halo's downclimb as a series, but there were still some redeeming features for me. I wasn't very into Halo as a series when Halo 2 came out, so I don't really hold that kind of fondness that other people have for it. And Halo 3 comes really close to Halo Reach and being one of my favorite games, but I was just so much more into Halo Reach than I was to 3, so I got sucked in a bit deeper. The multiplayer was fluid, the single player was interesting, and I just have so many fond memories of playing this with some of my friends. Plus, it was Bungie's final installment in the Halo series before 343 took over, so it earns bonus points for that. And to this day, it's the only FPS I can really stand anymore. I bet some of you saw this coming. Probably most of you are here because of this game. Smite is my fourth favorite game of all time. Not so much because it's a great, fluidly balanced game that we all know it to be, but more so because of the effect that it has had on my life. Yeah, this is where I start getting to the touchy-feely stuff, so strap into the cringe toaster, kids. I started playing Smite around 3 years ago, and hey, it was fun, you know? Yeah, it had Zeus and, Zeus! I got pretty hooked on it. It has fun third-person MOBA combat with an interesting spin by using gods of different mythologies. Then I decided to make a video about it, and I really didn't think that it would be that big, but I figured it could be fun. And boy, was I wrong! As much as I want to fundamentally change that video, I still consider it to be where my channel really started to grow. And for that, I owe this game a lot, and it has deepened my adoration for this game even further. But hey, at least it's still a fun game on its own merit, right? Well, maybe once they delete Kali from the game, it will be. Another franchise that has had a lot to do with my time on YouTube is without a doubt Sonic. I mean, it's what I made my first countdown about, and I still make videos on it today. I've talked about the games that I love in the series before, so if you've seen that video, then you probably guessed that Unleashed is my number 3 pick for this list. But you'd be wrong, because it's Sonic Adventure 2. While Unleashed is my favorite Sonic game, I would still say Adventure 2 ranks higher than it in my favorite games because as a game, I like it more, and I'm able to go back to it easier. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still has its glaring problems. I mean, all of this, for example.
Amy Rose is here.
But for all that kind of shit, it makes up for by having a goddamn Chow Garden, right? If this wasn't one of the best inclusions in a game ever, then I don't know what is. With tight controls and incredible music of a Sonic game, along with some interesting level design, this game will always remain as one of my favorites that I can always go back to. Number 2 is Pokemon Emerald. Next. Alright, I'll explain a little bit. So I've said before that Pokemon Emerald is my second favorite game. That's because it's basically a mix of every other reason why I like the games on this list. It's a great game that changed a lot to do with the structure of Pokemon at the time. It holds a lot of meaning to me because of how much I've done with it in my time on YouTube, and it was a game that I furiously played in my childhood. Like, fuck, dude, I'm surprised I don't have glaucoma floating around in my head from how much I looked at my Game Boy when I was a kid. So many of my favorite Pokemon come from this game as well. And I mean, I'm not alone in that. From what I can gather, the Gen 3 games are loved by most. I mean, it's not like I'm saying I like Gen 5, you heretic fucks. Oh wait, I do. Nonetheless, if you've been around on my channel for a little while, you know that I love this game. But here's something I've never talked about before. Okay, so here's something no one would have ever predicted. Yeah, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom is number 1. No, I don't actually have a solid explanation for this choice. This is one of the most irrational loves for a game that I've ever really had. I adore this game, but I mean, how could you not as fucking SpongeBob wearing an army hat? Like, who even thought of this? I mean, clearly Nickelodeon had to capitalize on the popularity of SpongeBob in the early 2000s, right? I mean, that was undoubtedly the prime time to make something like this before they started exclusively making shows that focus solely on overprivileged white children that have the most absentee parents ever. Where the fuck are your parents? The game focuses on adventure involving SpongeBob fighting Plankton's robot minions. The story isn't grandiose, but I mean, what more do you expect out of a show that creates half of its writing for a mentally retarded starfish? You go through places like Bikini Bottom, Kelp Forest, and the Dutchman's ship to find golden spatulas that finally let you fight giant mech bosses of your friends to get to new areas. You can fight Robotic Sandy, Mech Patrick, and even Jelly and SpongeBob, before fighting a mechanized Plankton to win the game. On top of all this, you can play as SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy to provide you with some varied gameplay. The game is above average. I mean, if you're looking for a prestigious game such as, Call of Duty and Skylanders, not gonna find it here, but I find myself just so drawn to this game, I can't explain it. And it will probably forever remain my favorite game of all time. I'm Mr. Alfredo Sauce, and thank you for 10K. Here's 10K more, and a lot more bullshit. See you next time. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video and for helping me hit 10K. At the time that I'm recording this outro, I'm almost to 11K, so yet again, thanks so much. If you're new or haven't seen some of my other videos, I have 2 videos up on the screen right now. The one on the left is my most recent video on the top 10 worst bosses in Sonic games, which I'm pretty proud of. The other one on the screen is my very first countdown, my top 10 favorite Sonic games. Now don't get me wrong, that video is awful. Like, absolutely fucking awful. I sound like a bedridden 5-year-old, but hey, if you want to just see how far the channel has come, then please be my guest. All of my social media is on the screen near the bottom, and I can't wait to see your opinions of the video, and feel free to post your favorite games down in the comments. Just in case you guys wanted to know, my next video will be on the top 10 best ultimates in Smite, and after that we will be starting Pokemon month in November, to align with the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. See you guys then!